and we replaced it with someone else, the Shah, who would do anything we wanted. It seemed like the perfect ending.
And Mossadegh is put into exile for the rest of his life.
He was under house arrest for the rest of his life in his village in Iran. That coup seemed like a success at first, but now when you look back on it, it serves as a fascinating object lesson in unintended consequences. Just very briefly, so we placed the Shah back on his peacock throne. The Shah ruled with increasing repression for 25 years. His repression set off the explosion of the late 1970s, what we call the Islamic Revolution. That revolution brought to power a clique of fanatically anti-American mullahs. That revolution also inspired radicals in other countries, like next door Afghanistan, where the Taliban came to power and gave shelter to al-Qaeda with the results we all know. Instability in Iran that followed that revolution also led Iran's great enemy, next door Saddam Hussein, to invade Iran. That not only set off an 8-year war between Iran and Iraq, but it also brought the United States into its death embrace with Saddam. We were the military allies of Saddam during the Iran-Iraq War, and we were supplying Saddam with military intelligence, with Bell helicopters that he used to spray gas on Iranian positions. President Reagan sent a special envoy twice to Baghdad to negotiate with Saddam and ask him how we could help him, and of course that envoy was Donald Rumsfeld. So that instability set off by that revolution also led the United States into the spiral in Iraq that brought us to the point where we are now. That revolution in Iran also spooked the Soviets. They were terrified that there would be copycat fundamentalist revolutions all along their southern flank, and to prevent that, they invaded Afghanistan. That brought the United States into its position in Afghanistan, where we brought Osama bin Laden there. We trained all these tens of thousands of jihadis in how to kill infidels, which they later became the Taliban. We later became the infidels they wanted to kill. So why is this all so important for today?
And in fact, it affected the Carter-Reagan elections.
Oh, and it devastated the presidency of Jimmy Carter forever, absolutely.
Which had an enormous effect then on Latin America when you look at Reagan's role in Latin America in the 80s.
You can, they call it in the CIA, walking back the cat. You can walk back the cat endlessly on this one. And the reason the story is so relevant is that it tells us the main thing you need to know in assessing the current idea of an attack on Iran, which is the worst consequences are ones you can't even imagine. Not even the wisest analyst, the most prescient specialist in 1953 could ever have imagined all these consequences. Oh, the Shah's going to fall, there's going to be mullahs in power, the Soviets are going to invade Afghanistan, all these other things will happen. It shows you that when you violently interfere in the affairs of another country, you're like setting off a wheel at the top of a hill. You let it go. You have no idea how it's going to bounce. And
Stephen Kinzer, the issue of torture that we are dealing with today, can you go back to Iran with the Savak and with the CIA? What was their relationship and who was the Savak?
Savak was, of course, the Shah's notoriously repressive secret police. And one of the early commanders of the Savak was General Nasiri, who was a close participant in the coup that overthrew Mossadegh and brought the Shah to power. In fact, he was the only guy promoted for his work during the coup. The Shah personally promoted him from colonel to general as a result of his work in the coup, and then he went on to become the director of the Savak, which was, of course, the very brutal secret police that the Shah used to repress his people for years.
And when the Iranian Revolution took place in '79, didn't they find CIA offices in Savak?
Yes, the CIA and the Mossad were actively involved in training.
Mossad, Israeli intelligence.
Israeli intelligence were intimately involved in the operations of the Mossad. And this is a classic thing you always see in...
Of the Savak.
Of Savak. You see this in the aftermath of many American interventions, that after the intervention, the United States has to decide who's going to be the new leader now. And you usually want a person with two qualities. First of all, it should be somebody who's popular, who has the support of his people and can stay in power. Secondly, it needs to be somebody who will do what we want, since we didn't overthrow someone we didn't like just to put in someone that would not do what we wanted. But we soon realized you can't have both. You can't have somebody who's genuinely popular and who also is governing on behalf of the United States. People want their leaders to represent the interests of their own countries, not the interests of some outside country. So then the U.S. has to choose. What do we want? Do we want a guy who's going to be popular but won't do what we say? Or one who will do what we say but won't be popular? Well, it's such an easy choice. You pick the guy that is going to do what you say. Then more and more opposition to him develops. He tries to put it down, but he can't do it alone because he's so unpopular and isolated. Then he calls in the U.S. for help, and then the people in that country began turning their anger not just at their own leader, but also at the United States, which they see behind that leader, and that's exactly what happened in Iran.
Is U.S. policy today shoring up Ahmadinejad?
I think so, and I even think that not just shoring him up, we helped bring him to power. In 2003, the Iranians sent a very comprehensive offer of negotiations to Washington. In that offer, they actually listed the points that they would be willing to negotiate, and they included the nuclear program in Iran, Iran's support for Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad, and even the Beirut Declaration, in which Arab states proposed that they all recognize Israel in exchange for the recognition of the establishment of a Palestinian state. So all the agenda items that we claim to be interested in were in this offer, which was delivered by the Swiss ambassador in Tehran to Washington. Not only did we not reply to that offer, but we actually reprimanded the Swiss ambassador for having the temerity to bring it to us. Now, that was the policy of the old government in Tehran, the government headed by President Khatami. The policy was, let's extend a hand of friendship to the United States. Let's offer to negotiate. The other hardliners then said, you tried that, and it didn't work. We got to try another policy, which is you got to make life as miserable as you can for the United States, because the policy of trying to have a dialogue with them didn't produce any results. So I think that actually helped create the climate in which a conservative, militantly anti-American figure like Ahmadinejad was able to rise. It's because when we had a more moderate president who was talking about the dialogue of civilizations, we just pushed him aside and didn't talk to him.
Stephen Kinzer, author of All the Shah's Men, An American Coup and the Roots of Middle East Terror. That does it for today's broadcast. If you'd like a copy of today's show, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. There you can also find our headlines, the transcripts of every broadcast, and our video and audio podcasts, as well as our headlines in transcript and audio form in Spanish. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Sharif Abdokadus, Aaron Mate, Anjali Kamat, Jeffrey Hagerman, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Robbie Caron, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Peter Curries, our engineers. Thanks also to Becca Staley and Hugh Grand, Samantha Chambly, Jaisal Noor, John Randolph, Rakan Penny, and Vesta Godars. Our website, again, is democracynow.org. There you can sign up for our daily digest. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.